Okay, I think we're ready to go. We've got everyone here. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we'll start off like we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. So we want to stand. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So here we are again via Zoom, and hopefully we won't have too many more of these and you can all get back together. But we'll start off. I know that Ms. Foster has lots of things she wants to share with us tonight, lots of updates, so we'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. Welcome to an alternative Zoom meeting. And so I want to start out my superintendent's report with a teacher and staff appreciation this week. Lots of folks around the world are giving a big shout out to their staff. And I definitely want to say that Marion County Public Schools has so many folks that really make kids a #1 top priority. And so I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you. And it's not just this week that we appreciate you, we appreciate you every single day. Especially during this time, since March the 13th, our schools have been operating under a remote blended learning model. Some of our students have been participating in paper packets, while others have been participating through remote using their laptop/Chromebooks and working through technology. And actually today is the official last day of school for our students, May the 7th. We did end our school earlier in regards to days, but our students did complete the required 1,062 hours. Our staff's last day will be May the 22nd, which will be a couple of Fridays from now, which had been what we had originally planned. And there's so many things going on in our district. And one of the things that I think a lot of people have found is that there's been some things that our kids have missed out on. And one of the things that our district has actually missed out on is our student showcase with our spring summit. And for those of you that had been invited, you should have received a really nice magazine in the mail. And you can see if someone would like one of these and you don't have one, we would love to share that with you. But it's full of all kinds of great things that our staff and our students are actually doing in Marion County, and that was going to be a big part of our summit. You know, what the summit has turned into is an opportunity for kids to actually showcase all the things that are going on in the district. They definitely tell the story of Dream, Believe, Achieve. I say all the time, it's one thing for me to say that or a principal, but it really means a lot when our kids have those conversations. And that's going to be just one of many, many things that our kids did not have an opportunity to be a part of. So I thought tonight what we could do is we could actually show a student presentation. Last year at the summit, we revealed a new app that Marion County had, and we noted that as My Shield. And we talked about how our students use technology, and while we still want to put things on a piece of paper and we want to save it to a jump drive, our kids actually upload items. They put pictures on a lot of different social media apps. They also find different ways of using technology. And throughout the year, we have slowly started to use this app. And obviously, some kids are more excited about this than others. But what I wanted folks to know is that during this NTI time, we actually use this as an opportunity for our children to upload some of the really cool things they did during this NTI time in Marion County. And I think it's worthy for us to look at one of the projects because again, it's one thing for me to talk about the things that have taken place. While you will be seeing a student demonstrate something that was uploaded to their MyShield project, what I want you to understand is that these projects, while it's just a moment and a glimpse, there's a lot that goes into this. A student just doesn't come to Marion County Public Schools reading. We teach them to read, and when we say success ready, it's about not just starting, but it's about going through this entire process. And so I know a lot of people hear a lot of things that we throw out, and I think it's important for them to know that when we reveal something like MyShield app, that's not just to reveal that at the summit, but that's something that we actually want to use, and we feel like that is a big part of helping our children graduate success ready. We've not arrived with this app, but we definitely think that this is going to be something that's going to address what students need and actually helps us with this blending learning. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Lyons, and he's going to have a kiddo on the screen. And if you could just take a few minutes and watch this young man, we would appreciate your time.
Hi, my name is Cody, and I am reporting my STEM project. So it's called the Unbreakable Bag. So first, what you need to do is gather a bunch of sharpened pencils. You need to make sure they're all sharpened. Their goal might not work. Second, you need a plastic bag. This is just a normal zip bag that you can get at any store. So next, what you need to do is fill it up with water, hot or cold. Make sure not to fill it all the way, or the water will fill out at the top. Once you have it filled up enough to where you think it's good, you are allowed to stick in the paper. But make sure nothing gets too close, or else it's going to make a hole in that sheet. There's one. See, it really does work. Now, how this works is because the plastic bag is made out of polymer. And once you poke a hole in the bag, the pencils are able to use the molecules in at the bag. So basically, the pencils are basically becoming part of the bag that you poked out. So, and that's how it works. I did magic work. It works because the dish soap touches the milk and it loses fat and spreads and starts to make it swirl in the milk. What I did, I poured the milk on the plate, dropped 12 drops of food color into the milk. This was also right. I took a Q-tip and dipped it in the dish soap. I took a Q-tip and placed it in the picture of the milk on the plate. And then I started to watch the food coloring drops expand throughout the milk on the plate. My hypothesis was that the food coloring was spreading in the milk. It made solution. It made the food coloring scatter and spread because the milk lost fat because of the dish soap, and the molecules began to start making a swirling effect in the milk. It works because the soap caused the fat in the milk to spread, and it dances around in a motion with the food color. That is what happens when you put the dish soap in the milk.
We'll do one more. We'll do one more.
instructions and money. First, we'll start off with supplies. Natural fiber and fabric like cotton, silk, wool, rayon, and cotton. Plastic trash bag to cover work surface, plastic bag or plastic wrap, paper towels, and scissors. General instructions. 1. Set up work surface. Protect work surface with plastic trash bag. Cover with a layer of paper towels. 2. Pre-wash fabric. Pre-wash fabric to removing any sizing. Do not use fabric softener or dryer sheet. Choose desired technical. If using a technical fabric or dryer. If using wet technique, use directly from wash. 3. Prepare fabric. Wearing protective gloves, add water to dye bottom and fill to the neck. Replace cap tighten. Shake until dye is dissolved. Use full strength for intense color. For a brighter shade of color and more water, using extra bottle if needed. Apply dye within 24 hours after dye. Fabric mix. 5. Dye fabric. Apply dye on fabric. Checking to make sure dye was penetrated into folds. Do not oversaturate fabric. If dye is applied too close together, the colors may become muddy. 6. Wrap, let sit, rinse. Cover dye fabric with plastic wrap to keep damp. Let sit 6 to 8 hours or longer. For most intense colors, rinse until water is clear. Cut rubber bands if used. Fill washer to large load setting with potash water substance. For fabric and a small amount of laundry soap. Wash and dry separately for the first few minutes. Now, on to our conclusion. In conclusion, I am glad that I did this project because I can wear this over my babies. One thing I would change is not to put so much doubt on the cover because the material is thin and see-through. This is my tie-dye art project.
I hope everyone enjoyed the student demonstrations. It was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at West Marion. So they were nice and kind enough to share those with us. And we have several of those. I know a lot of times at a board meeting, we have our student ambassadors here at the high school level. So I thought I'd do something just a little bit different. So you can see we had some science going on there and some art. So excited to see that. I know that a lot of people have a lot of questions about the end of the year events. And one of the big events that most folks are really anxious to hear about, and that's graduation. And so we have some information out in the world, but I think I need to go over that during my superintendent's report. We've been told that our graduation cannot be held in a traditional way, that needs to be held in a very non-traditional way. We received word today from Lincoln Trail Health Department, and Marion County Public Schools will be holding a virtual drive-through outdoor ceremony. And when I say virtual, the reason I say that is the entire graduation will be filmed and live streamed. So folks from anywhere and everywhere will have the opportunity to watch that. It will be Saturday, May the 23rd, which is in keeping with the graduation date that we expected. The time, however, will need to be from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. This will help us with ensuring that we keep with the CDC guidelines, and also to ensure that all of our students have the opportunity to go across the stage. We will be working in partnership with the Lebanon Police Department and Marion County Sheriff's Department. And that's just to make sure that since we are having folks on the campus that's out of the ordinary, we've got to make sure that folks stay in their car. Each graduate will receive a time and a number, and they will actually line up at the Marion County Night Academy. We will have staff there to ensure that our kiddos get in line appropriately. Each graduate will have an opportunity to have 6 family members. We will line up. The first group of kids will begin at 1:45 lining up. The ceremony will begin at 2. Our students will drive past their soccer field, their softball field, our beautiful flag, our football field, and then the stage area will be set up on the back patio. Again, we will have, we are partnering with Alex Peak. We will ensure that the live streaming will go out. We will also have LED panels for the folks in line to actually see the graduates ahead of them. After the ceremony is completed in whole, that audio and video will become our property. We will upload that to the Marion County Public Schools YouTube channel. As the students drive to the back, they will stop. We will keep cars 6 feet apart. And then they will pull up to the stage. Only the graduate will be allowed to get out of the car. They will have an opportunity to go up the stage. They will walk across the stage. They will pick up their diploma. We have also hired a photographer who will take a picture of the graduate. So each graduate will have a professional photo taken. We wanted to make sure that the stage was big so that parents could look up at their child walking across. We also want to give a shout out to Craig Bishop, who is volunteering to provide some plants and things like that to help with that. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Bishop and his family. But our kids, after they walk across the stage, the picture's taken, they will then get in the vehicle with their family members. They will drive out in the same direction. They will turn right and head out Knight's Way and drive out the front of the school, which is very similar with what they do every day in school. Each senior will be given a mask. It's a Marion County Night Academy mask. All of our staff will be wearing the appropriate PPE equipment. All staff will have their temperature taken prior to. It's limited, obviously, based on what the health department allows us to do. And all of our seniors and their families will be receiving a detailed letter about what their expectations are in regards to the entire ceremony, and also a time for them to arrive. It's going to be very important for folks to understand that there will be an arrival time for the kids. It will be live streamed. There will not be a need to be there early because there's going to be just a staging area. And just want to show folks that when I emailed this to Lincoln Trail Health Department, I don't know if anybody can see this, but we'll put this out on our website, but we actually had an entire picture of the campus, and we noted exactly where our kids would be staging to line up, where the kids would drive their vehicle, where the stage would be, and how they would exit. So I was very pleased to get this graduation plan approved. And I want to give a big shout out to our student focus group. A couple of weeks ago, myself, Mr. Peterson, and some other leaders in the district met with our students virtually on a Zoom meeting, and we took input from our students, and we heard what they had to say. We had 3 different options to look at. Our first option wasn't approved, but that's okay. That's the good part. That's part of planning, a good life lesson. But we feel like that this is a good plan. This morning when the plan was approved, I made sure that that group of students that represented a cross section of our student body was notified about what this was going to look like. And, this is not what we're accustomed to. But what I want to say is that if we're going to do this, we want it to be a first class event. We want the families to understand that we want to make this special. I was told by a number of parents that they really felt like their children deserved to walk across a stage. And we wanted to make sure that that stage was something that would be a memory for a lifetime. Our kids did tell us that when things could get back to normal, we're not sure when that's going to be. But there would be an opportunity to do a traditional graduation in the Roby Dome, like we always do, and we absolutely will prepare for that. Not ready to give a date for that because we're not sure how these phases are going to go and how quickly that's going to take place. But when I say that our teachers do an awesome job and our staff does an awesome job, that's just an example of that we're going to go above and beyond, and we're not going to let COVID-19 keep us from creating some special events. And just like graduation is going to look different, I want folks to know that our schools are planning virtual award ceremonies. Our teachers have gone out and had parades. Actually tonight, our middle school and our night academy are having parades for our students. And tomorrow, for the first time ever, we're not going to allow not being able to be at school to keep us from having talent shows. And what started out as one school doing a talent show has turned into our entire district is going to be a part of a virtual talent show. And so we hope that folks will tune in and see the talent that our kids have. That's the one thing we want to keep stressing over and over. This is about our students and giving them opportunities, and access looks a little bit different, but we're still going to always look at that access and opportunity and give our kids those options. This entire school year, I've spent a lot of time talking about the whole child, and you can see, my superintendent's report looks a little bit different and sounds a little bit different, but we're just in a little bit different time. And when we talk about a child's academic, physical health, and also their social emotional health, we spend a lot of time talking about food, especially here lately. And I just have to commend Ms. Wheeler. Our district has served 279,611 meals since March the 13th. 279,611 meals. And, that would not be possible if we didn't have that leadership. We didn't have a good plan in place to begin with. We have several volunteers. And, I am very fortunate to have an opportunity to work with some volunteers out here at the high school. That's my spot that I go to. And, we're all out there together. It's not about who serves in what role. When those folks are rolling through that line, each of us have a job, and our job's to get those meals in those cars for our families to take part of. I have had some questions about what this is going to look like in the summer and how long we're going to do this. I want parents to know that we will continue the current way of doing our program through that last week for teachers, which would be May the 20th. So during that week, we will do the exact same thing next week and the week after as we have done before. I am going to ask that our lunchroom ladies and our staff take a break that week of Memorial Day. So we will not have food service meals provided on that Wednesday. But what I want families to know is that means the Wednesday before, that May the 20th that I'm talking about, we will actually be sending home extra food to make it through that time. And so hopefully by next week, we will receive some additional guidance from KDE, the Department of Education, Kentucky's Department of Education, and USDA about what our summer food service will look like. We understand that as folks phase back into work, It may look different as well for us, but we will have a plan. We will ensure that folks are notified, and we are really pleased to be able to provide this service to our community. And, you know, we've had lots of parents tell us that they won't eat chicken patties for me at home, but they sure do love these chicken patties. So it's been very comforting, I think, to our kiddos to have some of those same things that they have at school while they can't be there in a traditional way. You know, they're having classes non-traditionally. And so they're also doing breakfast and lunch the exact same way. You know, so many things that are taking place during this time. I could go on and on and on, and I probably would have some board members giggle at me because they know I get pretty passionate when it comes to sharing about all the wonderful things that are going on in our district. You know, I've talked a lot about the things that have been going on, but you know, we have students, we have teachers, we have principals, we have staff members, all doing so many things in Marion County Public Schools. And I could talk about the grants that we've received. I could talk about the professional growth that's going on. But I feel like that there was a news story done with WLEX TV, Channel 18. And I feel like that really captured the essence of what Marion County Public Schools is trying to accomplish here. And it did it in a pretty short amount of time. And it interviewed several folks in our district. And rather than me going down through a long laundry list of all the wonderful things that goes on, I thought I would share that, and especially share that because it is a Lexington news station. And I, like you, I don't receive a Lexington news station at my home, and we receive the Louisville news. And so I thought it would be nice for our community to see this wonderful piece that highlights all the things that are going on in Marion County Public Schools in a short video.
Many districts are trying to not only keep students focused academically, but checking on their physical, social, and mental health too. LEX 18's Conroy Deluche visited Marion County as the district rebounds virtually in tonight's The Rebound Kentucky.
Inside the empty halls of Marion County High School, the only signs of life are coming from inside the cafeteria as staff members prepare thousands of meals.
All employees are wearing masks. All employees are wearing gloves and changing gloves between tasks. And we're actually taking all of their temperatures before they enter our building.
14 meals go home to each student once a week, ranging from milk, juices, and fruits to chips, pizza, and of course, the chicken patties.
We know that that's something our kids, we've got lots of feedback that that's something they want. They miss those things.
They also missed spring plays, concerts, sports.
I was going to go to prom and stuff like that. I work with a lot of seniors and they are just having a tough time.
Normally a time of celebration, seniors are instead bracing for a socially distant graduation.
It's going to look very different, unfortunately, but we're trying to do the things, you know, try to recognize them.
The principal says his staff put yard signs out for upcoming graduates, and there's even a drive-through cookout coming this Thursday. Superintendent Taylora Schlosser says that teachers and coaches are looking beyond students' academic and nutritional health.
We wanted to make sure we address their social and emotional health as well.
For Schlosser, monitoring the mental health of students is personal. She lost her daughter, Taylor Ray, to suicide last year. Shortly after, with some students and faculty, the Smile Club was launched on campus.
We got pretty close throughout the year, and so we're all trying to keep in touch with each other and be positive together.
Slosser also created the Ray of Sunshine Foundation, which strives to create positivity, increase access to social and emotional health resources, and remove the stigma.
I think that's really what Ray of Sunshine has tried to do over this course of time, is just to remind everyone that your story is important and that there are resources out there for you.
Normally, Slosser travels the state to speak with students face-to-face, but that contact is replaced by FaceTime live connections for now and art demonstrations on Zoom. For parents, if a child is struggling or feeling alone, she recommends helping find resources through their principal, guidance counselor, even through telehealth, and to keep that dialogue going.
I think the most important thing is just that two-way conversation, that open, honest conversation, and that it's okay to not be okay.
Virtually, students and faculty.
They did not allow COVID-19 to take away how special that their students were.
Are taking care of each other through this school year and the pandemic. In Marion County, Conroy DeLuche, LEX 18 News.
So I felt like that video, you know, had a lot of what we do, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so I would let folks know that it's very important to have those conversations with your kids, and I just want to give another shout out to our staff for making those connections and with our students and just letting them know that they care. And, you know, I just, again, I know I keep saying it over and over, we have great faculty and staff. That video just really captured a lot of what's going on at Marion County High School and around our district. So I guess I would ask the board at this time, there's a lot of things that are going on, and if there's some items that I need to address, if you have some questions, I'll be glad to take those.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you all, and just keep checking your email and also our Facebook page and our website. We'll keep you posted and updated.
All right, thanks a lot. Glad you got a update on graduation. I know, I'm sure everybody else gets that question a lot, as I have in the last few weeks. So glad we got a plan for that. It looks like it's a good plan, and it's gonna be nice. So next item on the agenda is a report from Terrace Metrics, and we have Rich Gilman with us. Take it away, Rich.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I know how busy the agenda is, and so I thank you so much for inviting me to present what we've been doing with many districts, not only in Kentucky but in multiple states. We're as far west as California and as far east as the United Kingdom, to do the one thing that I'm going to share my screen on. And so just real quick, I can't share my screen, but I will walk through. So as real quick background, who I am, I'm a licensed psychologist, previous academic appointments in Georgia State, University of Kentucky, and most recently University of Cincinnati Medical School, where I ran our PTSD program as well as all of our school-based mental health programs. Now, I stepped down in 2018 to do something that is not found in schools, and that's looking at the whole child. And that's what I love about what Marion County is doing, because that's exactly what several of the districts about 5 years ago approached me with. And they were recognizing, just like Marion County, if you just focus on one aspect of a child's life, you forget about the other half. And that's equally important, if not more importantly. So what I'm going to do,
I think you should be able to share your screen now.
Yep, thank you. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you where we're at. And so the company that we formed is called Terrace Metrics. And where I'm from, which is very much like where Lebanon is, you know, I come from a very small town. And what Terrace means is basically you take something that's unfertile, unproductive, and you create something that's meaningful, that's productive for it. And if you think about how we have been assessing behavioral health in our schools, it's been quite unproductive and quite fragmented. And the reason I say that is that the most recent research that came out is that the time when a problem first emerges to when it's brought to our attention in schools is 10 years. Now, if it's a behavioral issue, of course, it's going to be brought to our attention much sooner. But as students grow, as they get older, oftentimes those are not behavioral issues, those are issues that they keep inside. And they're very afraid to talk to somebody about it for a number of reasons. This is a different generation, though. They are certainly more willing to discuss what's perhaps eating with them, as long as they recognize perhaps something is eating them. And oftentimes that's not the case. This is what we know nationwide. It's a growing problem, and for about 1 in 5, that's the mantra. 1 in 5 youth, and this is not COVID, this is probably more now with COVID being with us, is facing significant mental distress. Here's the issue. If we wait 10 years for that problem to come to our attention, that problem becomes more intractable, becomes much more expensive to deal with. And for every student that's identified through formal means, 66% will go undetected. What research also shows is that the earlier we can first identify whatever the issue is, it allows us to prevent that whatever issue is from emerging to become a much bigger problem. We know the downstream effects of mental health that were alluded to. You know, you have early school dropout and all of these issues that are facing schools and communities. We focus on behavioral health. We don't focus on mental health per se, because mental health will only focus on the risks, and of course that's important. We also have to focus on personal strengths, the things that get us through adversity. And all of us are suffering from adversity now. But for many, there may be chinks in our armor, and maybe that there's difficulties overcoming whatever adverse circumstances we have. We have to look at both. And why is this important? Is because 50% of the very things that schools are focused on, and that is academic outcomes and behavioral outcomes, 50% of that variance has nothing to do with mastery of material. 50% is how we see ourselves, how we see our world around us. So it's from the neck up. Problem at this point is there's no comprehensive way of doing this, no way of monitoring a behavioral health status over time. A third, there's no way of getting that information immediately. Now, I'm a school psychologist by training. I'm constantly in schools. And if we think about our educational testing, when students take the educational test, the statewide tests, it's often months before they get the results back, which I guess is fine for educational testing, but that's not fine when we're talking about monitoring behavioral health. We need to know what's going on right away so that we can get to the students who perhaps could use more resources, and perhaps, and also identify students who are doing really well so we can keep them at that level. And there's no universal application until now. What I mean by this is that most of the things that are out there are coming from, well, guys like me who are in academic think tanks. We come up with an idea. We love to have schools join us in doing what we want to do, but it's usually limited, and it's usually based on what I as a researcher want the schools to do. So you have to do it this way. You can't break any standardization. It has to be focused on a certain age. And so when districts were approaching me, and 4 districts approached me 5 years ago to say, can we do something different? Because the company that they were using was an academic think tank and dropped out. And they left them in a lurch, and they came to me, and I thought, let's do something different. Let's create this not only universal, but let's make sure that it really addresses the needs of schools. And so the universal application, what I'm saying here, is it covers grades 3 through adulthood. And so we came up with this solution, and it's called Terrace Metrics. Now, it's not an assessment. An assessment is only part of this. It's an entire system. It's appropriate for individuals aged 8 through adulthood. And what I mean by this in terms of schools is high school seniors. It's all clinically evidenced. We've collected data on over, now at this point, 50,000 students. We've collected their data on their GPAs, their ACTs, their SATs, their MAP test scores, as well as other behavioral outcomes. And so it's incredibly validated. If you go to our website, you'll see we actually have a paper that talks about how valid this is. The results are presented back immediately to members of the response team of each school. And what I mean by this is that the response team members would be your counselors, your social workers, school psychologists, nurses. Teachers would not have access to the individual data. They would have access to the aggregate school report, which is also part of this. In addition, there's a parent report that accompanies this. That is released based on when the school would like. But it's a system. So it's not just giving you results. It's giving students a curriculum and other resources, both for parents as well as the schools, in order to really focus on areas that they've identified as could be improving, and making sure that the areas that they're really strong on stay that way. It's 15 minutes, that's it. It could be done in multiple pieces. It could be done on desktop, laptops, phones, iPads, multiple browsers. It's very simple, but it's very powerful. And this is how basically it works. When we go into a school district, we are a partner in every sense of the word. We do not turn over our software or anything. We always are based on a true partnership. So when a district signs up, we are there for that training. We call it pre-survey activities. And again, I will send you this this presentation, because my apologies for going very fast. I know you have a full agenda, but let me walk through this real quickly and how it works. For example, with Marion County, there would be a district champion. This is the one who basically just coordinate all activities in the district. And within each school, we call them response teams. And as I've mentioned, these are individuals who would have access to individual data, but they're very limited. Again, these are your counselors and your social workers and your school psychologists. Teachers and others would not have access to this information. What happens during the training, which is approximately 10 days prior to starting this, is we would be on site to provide that training. And the training is all available. The school districts don't have to do anything. We know that there's 3 ways that schools say no to something, and we know this. 1, it's going to require too much work that's beyond, and we understand that. 2, of course, it's cost. And 3, it's not tied to academic things or other things that schools want. So we address all of these. One of these is that we have all of the material available for the district, so they don't have to do anything. They don't have to come up with consent forms or letters of support or anything else. That's all available during our training and beyond. Parents, again, have to provide consent for this. So any parent who's not interested in having this, they can certainly opt out of this. And then we train all of the school-based response teams throughout this. During the actual assessment itself on designated days, and we will help each school figure out what are the days to do this, is that they will take this. It's all online. It's all de-identified. The information that the students take on their side of it, it's not tied to any personal information. The company that we formally do this, that's our former partner, does everything for international pharmaceutical companies. If you've ever used Kroger and their click list, so you know how secure information has to be, that's exactly. So we are FERPA compliant, we are HIPAA compliant. Once the student takes the assessment, that information is immediately available. It's immediately available to members of the response team. And what the response teams know is every student now, rather than having a student, or rather than waiting for the student to come to us, we can now understand how the students are doing across a number of indicators. And this is all linked to a school report and to district report and to a parent report and to our curriculum. So again, I want to emphasize it's not an assessment, it's a full, complete system. We've been doing this for 5 years, over 1 million administrations. Again, I would like to say international, not just domestic. These are the types of reports that are generated. The response team members receive this report. It walks them through a color code for each indicator. And I'll walk you really quickly through what these indicators are. And so, but what this is important is that every student will have a report that's generated, and it'll be color coded along this key code, and it's very small. So I'll read you through here. It ranges from optimal to satisfactory to moderate concern to at risk. Every indicator is going to be placed on one of the, or score is going to be placed along one of these color codes, as well as their overall functioning. And what this does is it allows the response team members real quick visualization of how the student is doing. Now, why is this so important? This is where our bread and butter is. As I've mentioned, we've collected, again, data on over 40,000 students from grades 3 through 12. This is what we know. For every step downward in this curriculum, GPA goes down about 12%, state test scores go down about 15%. You have a significantly higher rates of behavioral issues, and that could be a number of things. Absences, unexcused absences, office referrals, even tardies. Even from optimal to satisfactory, you see a reduction. So for a student, it behooves our schools to move every student, of course, to the optimal range. And how you can do this is first determine where they are now, and then you're able to allocate your resources accordingly to get students moving towards the optimal range over time. And this system will allow you to do that. In addition to the response team, The individual or the parent report is there. That can be sent electronically. Again, this is up to the schools to decide when to send the report. Most of our districts will send that right away. And then when the last student who is registered to do this takes it, each school has their own aggregate report that walks them through collectively what is the behavioral health of our school, and more importantly, helps them identify things they're doing really well and perhaps areas that they can improve upon, and they can use our curriculum as well as any other curriculum in order to work through that. We are an MTSS compliant company. What I mean by that is we're tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 compliant. We really focus on prevention and tier 2 services, which means that there is a group of students perhaps who are low in one area. This allows members of the response team to work with the group to promote that. And once you promote that, you'll see changes through the school. And I'll walk you through an actual example of how all this ties together. Now, what are these indicators that I keep referring to? And so, as was mentioned, SEL is a big thing in schools, and we are compliant with that. We believe in that. But if you look at there's a group called CASEL, and we follow with that as well. But they want 40 indicators that to be measured. But if you boil down all those indicators, this is what comes out, and this is what we are offering to schools based on age. All of these indicators in and of themselves have already been shown to be unique predictors of academic and behavioral standing. And so what are these indicators? Global satisfaction, otherwise known as happiness. It's the ability to take a step back and look at our lives overall. And students as young as grades 3 can make that determination. It is the biggest predictor of GPA. Hope is that we have a goal, and sometimes, well, often, in fact, almost always, a goal that we have sometimes has a block in it. Can we find ways to work around that blockage? And are we motivated to do that? Students with higher hope, higher academic standing, among other positive outcomes. We want to measure hope. Grit, tenacity to stick with something, to not give up. Standards, that is, have we set our standards high enough to address the standards that are brought upon us by our schools or by families and whatever. Positive school experiences, not only my relationship with my teacher, but just overall in my school. Do I feel like I belong? Positive work at places experiences is for older students. Social resiliency, it's looking at things like, what is the safety of my neighborhood? Do I have enough food? All of these other social aspects that are very important in terms of promoting optimal functioning. And then we often forget, but leadership and research, newest research is coming out. The earlier we can teach leadership qualities, even to students as young as grade 6, the more successful they are at life after age 18. And so these are what we call resiliency indicators. But if you focus just on the resiliency, you're going to get half the equation. And so we also have to look at risk too. Some of the stressors that they're bringing with them to school that's precluding them from reaching optimal status. And what are these indicators that we offer? Anxiety, frequent victimization. It's not that they're being bullied, it's how frequent. Social rejection. That's the biggest predictor of mental health. It's not anxiety or depression. Those are usually downstream effects. Social rejection means, am I connecting with anything? And we know that with students who feel that they are ostracized, again, it's their perceptions, you have a lot of negative outcomes associated. So we have to monitor that as well. And then there are supplemental indicators that are also offered. And it depends on the needs of the school and the needs of their community. We have a drug alcohol screener. We're not interested if a student is drinking a beer. We're interested in the degree of distress around drug or alcohol behaviors. Trauma, we are not interested in what the trauma is. We give them a list of things that would be considered traumatic. And even if they endorse that, that doesn't flag the report. It's the level of distress around whatever the trauma is. And then we also have a school violence indicator. It's an algorithm that's on our own. Beautiful thing about this is that schools have choices. They can choose any of these indicators. So we don't thrust these indicators on them. The schools have a determination of the indicators that they want. For grades 3 through 5, they have a more truncated version of these indicators. And then we also have a college or vocational readiness for students age 18 and older. And those are based on adult norms. So all of these indicators are available for districts. But again, it is the choice of the schools, it's the choice of the districts on which indicators they want to use. And it even goes down to families. So for example, if a family says, I want my child to do this, but I don't necessarily want them to have an indicator, they don't have to. The system can be programmed around them. What's more importantly is how these findings are tied to actual academic outcomes. This is an example of multiple districts, and this is just one. This is a larger district. This is a district of about 6,500 students. And they took this in the fall. And again, you got the elementary, the middle school, and the high school. Now, as you can see, all of these colors, these 4 colors, are directly tied to academic outcomes. So you can see a lot of red at baseline, and this is what you normally see at baseline because it's the first time that you would get an assessment of the entire student body, and that's all right. But you also see you have, significantly less children in the optimal range. But this is what allows schools and districts to do, return on investment. And I don't want to sound like a business person here, but that's so important, especially for this age. It allows us to allocate our resources accordingly. We know which students are in the at-risk range so that we can make sure they get the right resources. We know which students are in the optimal range so that we can leverage them for help. For example, many of the students in the optimal range, they're leaders. And so we can leverage them for mentoring programs, among other things. And when this school has done this, this is what happens 4 months later. And again, this happens more often than just what I'm showing you, is that you see a reduction in the at-risk and you see a increase in the optimal range. That's well and good, but what does this mean in terms of academic outcomes? And so this is an example, because we've now identified students who are struggling, and most of the students who are struggling in this area are also struggling academically. We know the kind of resources that they should and could have, and this is the results. 53%, over half of the students targeted in these areas met their map growth and reading growth goals 5 months later. It was the biggest jump. And this is what you find in a lot of districts, because again, you were able to allocate your resources accordingly. As I've mentioned, we are a 3-tiered model. We base on that. Students, parents have access to all of our resources. And how do you promote something that might be identified as the student struggling? How can we promote this at home? And schools have access to a curriculum that we have that can be provided in the classroom, school-wide, or by members of the response team. So our survey gives schools, parents, and students a better understanding of their current behavioral health functioning. It highlights areas that could be improved with a tangible action plan, assessment, identification, corrective action, and continuous ongoing monitoring, otherwise known as, we have now the ability to measure, monitor, and manage over time. So this is endorsements from several of our districts in Kentucky. We can certainly provide more if you'd like. We also are very compliant to the SEL standards. And with that being said, I'd like to turn this back over to any questions that you might be having or you might have regarding the services we provide or anything else.
I'll just let the board know that in regards to funding, we have written that into a grant. This is not going to be something that we're going to be asking the board members to put into our general fund budget. It goes along with what we're working on with several other areas. So I always know that that's important. So I'll let you ask questions of Rich.
Anyone have any questions for Rich? All right. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Everyone have a good day.
I'm glad you came with us. Okay. Next up is the finance report. Ms. Kokenauer, is she with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I will, let's see if Teresa can bring up the comparison report. Okay, I will just cover the items that are greater than 10% variance. The first is utility tax, favorable 35%. Don't know if that will, I would assume that might change with the economy, but so far it's been favorable over last year. Interest is favorable 11%. just because the balances are higher. It's the same rate. Medicaid reimbursement, unfavorable, just due to the Lincoln Trail reimbursement being made last year, which we no longer receive. Interfund transfers, that was last year, that was the capital outlay transfer. We're not doing that this year. So that money remains in capital outlay to be used for building projects. Other, unfavorable 80%. That was due to some omitted property tax we received last year, some preschool tuition we received last year, but not this year. And then in the expense category, Teresa, if you'll go down and just to look at the expenses. Instructional staff support services, unfavorable 13%. That's just coding of ECE staff. The ECE amount from the general funds remains at about 2.4 million from year to year. So it's just sometimes hits one category or another. And then 2,600 plant operations and maintenance, unfavorable 21%. That was the asphalt that we did in several areas this year. And then the last is community services. Well, not the last. Favorable 130%. We transferred some grant funding to pay for Leader and Me expenses. And land and improvements, favorable. That was architect fees paid last year for the LPC. And then fund transfers. It's unfavorable 315%. In March, we transferred all of general fund bond payment. So this year we have one bond that I believe it was for the ATC building. Right offhand, I'm not exactly sure which, but I think that's what it was, that we pay out of general fund. No, actually Scott can correct, but I think it was the energy management bond. So that needs to come out as a fund transfer. So I went ahead and did that. The cash balances in March of this year were 9.5 million. March of 2019 are 10.1 million. The comparison with balances in the other funds, I'll just say this year and then last year. Fund 2, which is the grants, this year 175,977 compared to last year 392,860. That's just probably a matter of when we get we usually spend and then get the revenue as reimbursement. So we have about the same number of grants. Fund 21, District Activity Fund, this year 217,225, last year 78,388. Capital outlay, this year 785,267, last year 500,760. So that's going to grow by at least 285,000 since we're not transferring it. Building fund, this year 3,105,556, last year 2,514,448. Another fund that's growing until we bond, which for me is good because that's just more cash that we have to contribute to the project. Construction fund, this year 1,478,382. Last year 53,407. That's just because we're in the middle school project and we have all that bond money deposited there. Debt service fund, this year 471,700. Last year negative 75,454. For this year's that 471,000, I have already transferred all the bond payments that we'll have this year, so that should be zero by June 30. Food service, the last one, this year 282,589. Last year 197,279. And we will, because we're in summer feeding and not the regular feeding, the revenue may come in a little bit slower, more delayed, but we anticipate not losing funds in that food. Just a reminder of what's coming up in June for the board meeting. We'll have the fidelity bond and the depository bond. to approve. You'll have the KSBA policy updates. I think that starts, the first reading is in June. And then any final fund transfers to close the year. All I have, unless you have questions.
Okay, any questions for Ruth Ann?
Ruth Ann, this is Kaylin. Did I hear you say that we think that even though we're in summer feeding, that our food service is still going to be in good shape after we get out of whatever this situation we're in right now?
Ms. Wheeler and I just had a conversation about that today. And we think that we might come out a little bit better, but we're not 100% sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
Ruth Ann, this is Peggy. Do you think we might get any type of summer grants or anything that'll be opened up? Have you heard anything? I've kind of heard through some grapevines there are possibilities.
For food service?
Yes.
She has applied for several grants, and she seems to be fortunate in getting those grants. So I would say yes. So I'm not concerned really about the food service program as far as financially.
This is Kaylin. What are you concerned about?
I'm probably concerned about next year that the state will be running a debt, will cut some of our SEEK funds. That would be my concern. Not really this year, but next year.
Okay. Any other questions for Ruth Ann? Okay, thanks, Ruth Ann. We'll move on to 4A. Need a motion for 4A.
This is Kaylin. I move we approve the fiscal year 2021 emergency provisional certification for teachers and substitute teachers.
I'll second it. This is Peggy.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 4B.
This is Kaylin. I move that we publish for, or move for publication for interest to fill the open community member position on the LPC.
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 4C.
This is Jim. I'll make a motion for 4C. Consider approval for the tentative graduation date of May 23rd, pending approval from the health department.
This is Peggy. I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5A.
This is Carrie. I'll make a motion that we consider approval of this field trip.
Now, second. Discussion?
I mean, obviously, this is going to have to be contingent upon some guidance from the CDC or something from the health department saying it's okay to travel in September. But I mean, we'll cross that bridge, I guess, when we get to it.
They actually were, Mr. Reed scheduled to go on this trip in the spring, and it was a case of if we could reschedule, our kiddos and their parents wouldn't lose money. So we're hoping that that's the case. We could have canceled, but there would have been a loss there. And so, but you're absolutely correct. And hopefully the company, if we can't work it out for this day, hopefully they will let us push that date out again. So thank you all for understanding.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5B.
Make a motion for 5B to approve the fiscal year 21 tentative budget.
This is Peggy. I'll second it.
Any question or discussion? Is Ruth Ann still with us?
Yes.
I just want a point of clarification. In the tentative budget, we just kept the salary schedule the same, correct?
Correct. It's the same, and so the only increase would be a step increase.
Okay. I want to clarify there. Any other questions or comments on the? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5C.
I'll make this Peggy. I make a motion approval of the 2019 2020 Kentucky Department of Education audit contract with White and Company PSC passed by the, sorry.
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5D.
This is Carrie. I'll make a motion we consider approval of the 2021 Roberts Insurance for Student Accident Insurance renewal for $84,917.
This is Jim.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5E.
This is Kalen. I move that we approve Cornell Hignite Insurance for all of the various insurances listed here for $389,006.
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5F. I'll move that we consider approval of depository bond appointing Citizens National Bank to serve as depository.
I'll second. It's Peggy.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5G.
I move this, Kalen. I move that we approve the Terrace Metrics software and services agreement.
This is Peggy. I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I don't know if Rich is with us, but there you go, Rich. I need a motion for 5H.
Make a motion for 5H. For approval of the order number 1 to on a commercial.
Whatever. What do you say?
You made the motion.
You made the motion. Any discussion?
Better, you're her nurse. We'll take care of her, okay? She needs something.
So just to clarify, this pay application, the documentation we have has a different total on it than what we're seeing. or at least that's what I saw. Am I looking at the wrong thing, Scott?
I can report my email. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't looked at that closely. But let's see.
It seems like the amount that's listed appropriate for payment on that's written in Randy's handwriting is $58,504, and we're approving $25,400.
We're pulling the paperwork.
Okay. Yeah, it says the amount certified is $58,504.75, and that's also the number listed as the current payment due.
That's a big difference.
That's our mistake.
Okay.
So we're changing that.
Okay. So are we approving $25,400 or $58,504.75?
We need to approve the 58.
Okay.
Our apologies.
That's okay.
Lots of numbers on a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
So procedurally, we need Brad and Jim to rescind their motion, and we need to make a new motion.
I rescind my motion
I'll
for
rescind
and I make a motion to consider approval for the pay application number 3 for the Marion County Middle Edition for the amount of $58,504.75.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. 5 aye.
I'll make a motion we consider approval of change order number 1 to Omni. This is Carrie, sorry.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Could you explain that one, please?
Yes, I can. And I think Ms. Schlosser sent you all the narrative on this, but the science lab requires a water station and for any kind of chemical spill or whatnot, and to get the proper flow that meets the code, we get to up the water service to that. This should have been, to be honest with you, should have been caught from the get-go, but it's by code and it needs to be done. A cost of roughly $4,000, a few dollars shy of $4,000.
And that's not, the price is not figured into the 58.
No, ma'am. That pay app is for work complete. This is a change order going forward will be paid at a later date. It's just approving to change the contract.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5J. How would we approve to declare a half-acre tract of land surplus to educational needs of district located off Corporate Drive?
This is Carrie, I'll second.
Any discussion?
This is Peggy. I think this is one that I will have to refrain from at this moment.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, just for clarification purposes, this is a small strip of land that runs on the back of our property that when years ago when it was surveyed off and the fence was built and a road was put in back there, that road for an adjoining piece of property actually came onto our property for a couple hundred feet. And so that's the basis for this request. It happens to be property that Peggy owns or used to own or is in the process of selling, but it's not necessary for our purposes. The fence is where the fence is, and we've never encroached over the fence as far as I can tell.
Just for clarification, I do not own it at this point.
Okay, all right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Need a motion for 5K. I move we consider approval to advertise sale of surplus land with a minimum offer to be determined by licensed appraiser and pending approval of sale by KDE Facilities Branch.
This Kalen, I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for 5L.
Sherry, I'll make a motion we consider approval to obtain bids for asphalt paving for Knights Way and Central Office parking lot.
It's Peggy, I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Should be a good summer to do some paving. Oil's cheap.
Everybody's looking for work.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion for items 6A through J.
This Kalen, I move we approve items 6A through J.
This is Jim, I second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item 7, acknowledgement of personnel actions so acknowledged. Need a motion for adjournment.
This is Peggy, I make a motion to adjourn.
Carrie, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.